G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the round 17 stock market video. Firstly, hope that you're all well, hope that you had a ripper of a round last week. With our teams now, most of us I think are starting to become fully upgraded, if not maybe 1 to 2 away. So the stock market video is becoming less relevant for some players, but for others, if you're still looking to make some changes, I'll go through some options that you can look to get in this week. Now, I have changed things up a little bit and I will do so from here until the end of the season. I'll now be taking on player requests. So rather than look at each and every player from a range of different price lines, you can simply send me in the players that you want me to look at, and that's what I'll do. That's what the video will be all about. So there are a few burning questions that have been sent to me this week from multiple people. I'll have a big focus on answering those in this video, as well as any other questions that have been posted on my Twitter account or through my YouTube videos. So hope that you're all well. As I said, let's take a look at the first burning question. Now, the number one question that I've received this week by far is what to do with Cole Langford. So I'm a little bit surprised about this because he is only owned by around 5.5% of coaches, but obviously he is a very popular selection within this community. So I've had questions from the SuperCoach pod. Love your stuff, mate. How you going? Austin, g'day, mate. Lowell, another great supporter of the channel. Alistair, Oren, g'day, Oren. Matty Heath, hope you're going well, Matty. Fezzy, been here for the last couple of years. Always love hearing from you, mate. Jack Clark, g'day, mate. Daryl Hall, one of the most active members in this community. Hope all is going well, Daz. And JD, we all know JD the GOAT by now. Yeah, feel me on the intro. This was about my round review. Yeah, we all have those moments, don't we, JD? But look, let's have a look at why we actually need to get rid of this man. Well, he does have a hamstring strain, so he's going to be missing for what they say several weeks or a few weeks. I normally take that as 2 to 3. 2 being the best case scenario, probably 4. I think being the worst case scenario. So look, do you trade him? Do you not? I think it is all dependent on your trade situation. So if you've only got the one trade left in the bank and you do have some bench cover, that could be a Waterman, a Madden, a Poulter type, a Waitman even, then I would probably advise you just to hold that trade, because what then happens if next week one of your uber primos like your Bonts, your McRae types, Oliver types go down, you simply won't be able to replace them. So given the fact there are, 6-7 weeks left of the SuperCoach season, if you've only got the one trade, I'd probably be holding Cole Langford. If you've got 3 or more, it's a really easy decision. I just think that you move him on. So let's take a look at some of the options we can select from this week. If you've got a little bit of extra cash to spend, then I think there are 2 really nice premium options. The first one we have here is Danger, forward mid status. DPP is always really handy at this stage here in particular. 560,400, which in my opinion is still a really decent price for Dangerfield and his potential output. 101 on the season, but a 126 for his 3-round average. We know that he had that massive score a couple of weeks ago. Last week, it was in the high 90s. I know some people did trust him with their vice captaincy, so that was a little bit disappointing for owners if you did do that. But all in all, I just think he's a really solid selection. Obviously missed a large chunk of the season to date, but I think he's now finding his feet. I thought it may take a little bit longer than what we've seen, but yeah, it looks like he's blown out the cobwebs and ready to play some really good football to end the season. So if you've got 560k in the bank, I think it's a really good idea to bring in Dangerfield. Or else, my man, you know I've been talking him up since, what's it been, about round 5 or 6. It's Aaron Hall. So 530,800. You are saving about 30k on Danger. 97 average on the season, 102 for his 3-rounder. Looking to score 103 according to SuperCoach Gold. So why do I love this pick? Well, his role is just built for SuperCoach. He's a seagull, gets a 1-2s, takes some kickouts from time to time as well, shares that role with Jack Zeeble. So if you own the both of them, you're basically guaranteed to get every North Melbourne kickout in your SuperCoach score for the round. So just love this bloke. Only gone below the ton once in the last 10 weeks, and that was a 73 a few weeks ago. So he's only let me down the once. I really, really love this selection. So if you are a non-Aaron Hall owner, you own Langford, you've got the cash, get this man in. Would I rather Hall or Dangerfield? It's really hard to go past Dangerfield with his scoring history, but Aaron Hall, I think, is a superb option if you have the money. Now, if you've got under 500k and you're looking for a really, really safe option, then look no further than this man, Bailey Dale. He'll set you back 475,300, got a season average of 95, a 3-round average of 99, and is a really consistent selection. So I'll read his scores out from round 10. It's a 152, a 102, a 96, a pretty off game with a 50, a 96, a 111, and then last week an 89. Just remember, keep in mind with that 50, he was moved out of position. He did play forward. I think it was for the second half after Norton was subbed out of the game. So it was really just team dependent, game dependent at the time. We will not see him move back to the forward line unless there's some absolute carnage during a Western Bulldogs game, I think. So yeah, apart from that 50, really super solid. That 89 is actually his lowest score apart from that 50 since round 10. So I'm a big advocate of this selection, and I would highly consider him if you're looking for a player in your forward line to average 90 to probably 105 at best, I'd say. The next safe option I've got here was actually requested by Umberto. Thanks very much for that, buddy. Absolutely loving the content, DR. You're a beast. Would love to hear your thoughts on Nick Hinds. Well, I do think he's a safe selection, buddy. And why is that? I think he's got a nice role for SuperCoach. He's a distributor, really breaks lines, and they like to get the ball in his hands. When Hinds does have the ball, something usually happens. Loves to take a running bounce. At times he can run a little bit too far, get caught out for that, but you'd much rather see him take the game on. So 479,000, 95 for a season average, 94 for that 3-rounder. So that shows a bit of consistency. Only 1 point difference between that and a break even of 63. So if he can hit a projected score of 98, he'll be close to around the 495 mark by the end of next week. We have seen an increase in his ceiling last month, so a couple of 130 pluses. Unfortunately, there is a 60 thrown in there, but we don't see too many low scores from Nick Hinds. I'd expect him just to continue with that season average of about 95. If I had to choose between Dale and Hinds, I would lean towards Dale. You're saving 4k, which isn't much, but what I really like about the Dale selection as compared to Hinds is the fact that Dale can always rely on those kick-ins for some extra points that are guaranteed each week, as I mentioned before. But both really nice options. If you've got one and you don't have the other, I think they could be a really nice pairing. Next up, we have a risk versus reward selection. So it is Rowan Marshall from the Saints, a forward ruck, really handy DPP status. Comes at a price of 438,000, which is a discount on his original starting price, which was over 550k at the start of the year. I was almost dead set that I'd start Rowan, but unfortunately had that foot issue. Didn't start the season. His first game was in round 4, missed the next week, played 6, 7, 8, and 9, and then missed rounds 10 to 14. But he has played the last 3, scores of 68, 100, and 95. 68, obviously that was his first game back. We don't expect him, or really any player, unless you're an absolute uber premium, to score big in your first game after a bit of a long layoff. And in 16, 100, I like that. 95, yeah, you can certainly live with that also, particularly for the price. Now, if you're running with someone like I am, for example, with a Jacob Edwards at R3, this does make sense because he also provides cover in the ruck line. Now, what's the issue with Marshall? It's not his talent, it's not his ability to score. We know that he can still score well with Ryder in the side. It's simply that durability. Do you trust him? Now, I've got a little bit more trust in what I did at the start of the season because he's actually gone in for surgery now, had it fixed up rather than just resting on it. That's a real positive for me, and he's actually looked pretty good the last couple of weeks. That time on ground is up also. So that's what I like about Marshall, that DPP status, the ability to hit the scoreboard when he's forward. Obviously, a great number 1 ruck when Ryder is either on the bench or moved elsewhere. I just think that the main issue is that durability. So if you're willing to take a risk and you need to save a little bit of coin, then Rowan Marshall at 438,000 I think is an okay selection, but be prepared for this to go wrong and for him to possibly go down. The next pick we've got in the risk v reward section is Jordan De Goey, 456,300 with a massive 3-round average of 118. Now, I can't believe that I'm even talking about this bloke at over 450k, but you cannot deny what he's done the last 3 weeks. So, round 13, 115, then missed a couple, came back against St Kilda at the MCG, 114, and then 124 last week against Richmond. So, this man is in fine form. We know he's got the talent. We've seen it every now and then, but it's been more once in a blue moon type stuff. And when we've seen these big games, it's usually been when he's kicked a bag of goals forward. He's the type of bloke that can impact a game in just a quarter, kick 2 or 3, do some really nice things, but then just seems to fade out and just really inconsistent. Even earlier on the season when he had some of his bigger scores, in round 2, 99, then followed that up with a 51. His next biggest score was then in round 8, 118, follows it up next week against Sydney with a 61. So consistency has always been a major issue for Goey, and also durability as well. He tends to miss matches almost every season. So look, why are we recommending him at this stage? Well, I think his upside is really, really big. I think that he does maintain that role in the midfield as well. Nath Jones, g'day Nath. He asked, do you think Goey will spend more time forward in his next game? He looked good up front, but not good for his output. Look, I just think that he continues to go through the mid. He's been playing so well there. Collingwood have been playing pretty well as a side, and I just don't see why you'd want to change up the mix now. Who is there to come back into the side, into that midfield? I really don't think that there's anyone, or there's no one that I rate anyway. So the way Goey's going at the moment, if I was a coaching staff at Collingwood, which I'm clearly not, I'd just be running with it. So the risk is that he falls off that roller coaster and then starts to plummet again. But I think that risk is not as great as what it was earlier or even midway through the season because of this new role. It's all about the role that he's playing in the midfield. I think he's had 2 30-plus disposal games, another high 20s game in his last 3 matches as well. So finding a lot of the ball, which is also great for his scoring. So if you've got around the 450 mark, you're looking to take a risk, but you want a play that does have a lot of potential upside for his current price, then Jordan Goey could actually be your man. I think that he's actually a pretty good selection. Next up, we've got Shaun Bolton. He was requested by Jeremy Bell. Thanks very much for that, Jeremy. Now, why do I have him in the risk versus reward section? It's mainly due to the fact that we've seen a big change in form, particularly during the last month. So from round 7 up to round 12, scores of 121, 108, 102, 119. He had 22 possessions, 21 possessions, 27, and then 21. And also kicked 3 bags of 3 goals. And in the other game against Adelaide, he kicked the 1 goal. But then fast forward to rounds 13 to 17. So 96, which is okay, but then a 44, 59, and 84. So we don't want to see this from Shaun Bolton. What has actually happened to him? Well, we go back to round 13. That 96, fine. Not a worry at all. Just playing his usual role. Had 23 touches, 4 tackles, got really involved. Now, we go to St Kilda against the MCG, and this is particularly when Richmond have really started to drop off as a whole, as a team. And, when Shaun Bolton only touches a ball 11 times, doesn't kick a goal, no impact on the scoreboard, then that makes it really, really tough, in my opinion, for Richmond to win games of football. And I know that sounds silly because, they're a team of champions, but I just think this bloke is a real barometer. When Bolton's up and about, I think that Richmond as a team are up and about. And, we go to round 16 against Gold Coast, a 59. That's probably a game where you expect Shaun Bolton to at least go 100 plus. But unfortunately, we know during that game that, was there any Richmond player that went 100 plus? May have been 1 or 2, but yeah, I don't think too many of those players can hold their heads too high there. But Collingwood, round 17 MCG, he did bounce back a little bit. So only a score of 84. But the good thing is that he did find the ball 26 times. So 13 kicks, 13 handballs, an even split there. Did hit the scoreboard as well with a goal, which is handy. A few tackles thrown in there. So if you think that he can get back to that early season form, and look, he has been really consistent apart from this last month. I'll read it from round 1. 85, 88, terrible score of 29, but then 110, 110, 99, and then as I mentioned, that really solid month of football. So yeah, I really like him as a pick, but in current form, he's certainly not setting the world on fire. So you'll need to put a little bit of trust in Shaun Bolton, trust in Richmond as a football team. Personally, if you're desperate and you can't get up to someone around that 450 plus mark, I think Shaun Bolton is still a fine selection. Next up, we have the package Jake Stringer. Now, I have the think safe and the risk versus reward symbol on him. Now, he's a really tough one because, look, if you ask me at the start of the year, is Jake Stringer going to be a risky pick? I'll say 100%. Don't even look at him. You'd be absolutely bonkers to consider starting someone like Stringer in your side. But what we've seen lately is some really consistent football by Jakey, playing a lot through that midfield, less time up forward. Over the last month, 180, 84, 110, and then a 95. So as a forward selection, that is absolutely fantastic. The 3-round average is 96 because obviously that massive 180 has dropped off. But 96 in itself, as an average from a forward, I think is actually okay. We've got to also keep in mind with that season average that he did have only a score of 27 against Brisbane, and this is part of the risk with this selection. So what else did he do? He had a 22, as you can see there, but that was injury affected, a lowly 44. But apart from those 3 games, his next lowest score is actually an 84. So he's had 2 84s, you can see there, 86, 92, and then a 95. Apart from that, the other 3 scores are above the 100. So if you look at his scores as a whole, yeah, pretty consistent this year. Now, durability, that's always going to be a little bit of a concern. Did miss matches in round 9, round 10, and also missed the 2 opening rounds to the season. His first game was actually against St Kilda, where he went bang with a 124. So, look, the talent is there with this man. Even in the last month, he still has hit the scoreboard, even though he's playing predominantly through that midfield. Maybe his split up forward, is a little bit more than what I thought it would be. But last month, 4 goals, 1 goal, 3 goals, and 1 goal. So 9 goals over 4 weeks, as well as finding the ball a lot. You go back to round 14, 27 touches, 24, another 25, and then 23 against Adelaide over the weekend. So all in all, I actually think that the Stringer selection could work. Similar to Goey, it sort of could go one of either way. But what we have seen with Stringer this year, as compared to Goey, is some more consistent form. Lots more scores around that 80 to 95 type mark. So if you need to choose one, it's a really tough one. They both come with their pros, but they certainly both come with their cons. Now we'll move on to the Key Forward Club. If you've followed my channel for the last couple of years, you'll know how I feel about this, blokes. I am not a fan of selecting key forwards in my SuperCoach side. I do have the roller coaster symbol up there, and I think it's for good reason. We see the really, really good, and then unfortunately, at times, the really, really bad from our key forwards. So I've got 4 options here at the moment. We've got Buddy, Charlie, Tommy McDonald, and Tom Hawkins. So Tom McDonald is the one with the lowest break even, only 25 this week, looking to go up just under 40k. Remember, we're not too concerned with how much these blokes are going up, unless we plan on purchasing them the week after. So, for example, if you're looking at one of these blokes to get next week, then yeah, you've certainly got to take into account how much they're going to rise. But if you're planning on getting them this week, and obviously keeping them in your side for the remainder of the season, then that projected rise is pretty much irrelevant. But under that, we've got Charlie Dixon, clearly the most expensive out of this bunch, 540,000, average of 94 in the season, 3-rounder of 105. If you're comparing the numbers here, there is no way I would be going with Charlie Dixon. I would not be paying 100k more for Charlie than a Tom McDonald or a Tommy Hawkins. We'll look at Hawkins, 444,800, season average of 91. So the top 3 blokes there, their season average is within what's at a 3-point range. However, if we look at the 3-rounder for Tommy, and that's only at 79. So his break even is in the red at 86. A projected score of 78. I think that's a little bit low. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tom Hawk go over the 100 this week. But look, that's what SuperCoach Gold project. And if that's the case, he'll lose a little bit of cash. Buddy, 457,600. Season average of 85. 3-rounder of 95. But a break even of 116. So if he hits a projected score of 104, he'll be looking to go down about 5k. Now, if I had to rate these key forwards who I'd be bringing into my side, at number 4, I think I'd have Charlie Dixon purely because of the price. That's the only reason why he'd be at number 4. He'd be certainly one of my top 2 if he wasn't 100k dearer than all of the other options. Number 3 is Buddy. Was going to put him at number 4. Look, been a champion of the past, but my main issue with Bud is the fact that I think that he will miss another game. I don't trust his body. Terrible durability. We've seen him really struggle to get in the park, particularly over the last few years. So I'd have Buddy at number 3. At number 2, I'd actually have Tommy McDonald. I know that he's got the really low break even, looking to go up a lot, coming off a really nice score. And he's had a really consistent season, to be honest, and he's surprised me, Tom McDonald. But I'd have him at number 2 simply because I don't rate him as much as the Tomahawk. And it's a little bit funny I've got the Tomahawk at number 1, given the fact he's got the 3rd highest break-even. But remember, that break-even of 86, it's still less than his season average. It's obviously more than his 3-round average, but if you look back to the season, I think that that's still very, very much achievable. And the reason why I like Tommy out of all this bunch is because of his scoring history. You know, we've seen him year after year finish in the top 10 forwards for averages, and I think that he'll also be able to possibly do it again. So even though that break even is in the red, I still recommend, if you are going for a key forward, to go with Tommy Hawkins. But in saying that, I wouldn't be selecting any of them myself. I'd be going for someone like a Gday or even a Stringer type over one of these blokes. And we'll finish off the Langford discussion with budget options under 400k. This was actually requested by UA. G'day mate, hope that you're well, bud. Hey DR, need a 300 to 400k F6. Could you tell us who you think is the best out of that bunch? Now, to start off with, mate, it is a pretty dodgy price range. Obviously, forwards under 400k are really, really hard to nail, but I have got 4 selections that you might want to take a look at, bud. We've got Tommy Lynch there, 378,400, season average of 69, obviously injury affected, but a 3-round average of 93, low break even at 16. He's playing my boys this week, the Lions, and we are absolutely decimated down back. We've had Darcy Gardner out for a little while now, and news has just come through that Marcus Adams will also be missing for about 4 to 6 weeks. So given the fact it's Jack's 300th tonight, I think that Tommy will really want to perform for his good mate, and I'm actually a little bit worried about the result tonight. But that's another discussion, just spewing that I can't watch my boys run out in the MCG. But with everything that's going on around the country with COVID at the moment, I suppose you can't complain too much. As long as football's still on, then I'm pretty happy. But we'll look at these last couple of weeks against the Gold Coast, score of 126, kick 5 goals. Really, really great first match back after a bit of a layoff. And then last week against Collingwood, kicked 3 goals for a score of 82. So his upcoming fixture, obviously got Brisbane this week, as I mentioned, then got Geelong, which may be a tough game. But then Freo, North, GWS and Hawthorn to end the season. So it does have a pretty friendly last month. So if you're looking to go someone that's under the 400k mark and does have some potentially big scores in him, then Tom Lynch could be an option. But NDHP factor written all over him. I can't stand him. Just personal preference. So I'd never select him in my side, Tom Lynch. Next bloke is Jaden Stevenson. So I think it was, well, the best game clearly that I've ever seen him play. Was just absolutely everywhere. Everything he touched turned to gold. He was damaging. He was finding so much of the pill. I think in one quarter, he got about 15 touches just in the one quarter. It was just a phenomenal game from Stevenson, but we haven't seen it regularly enough, you know, and given the fact that his price is still at 384 after that huge score on the weekend, that I suppose is evidence of the fact that he hasn't played overly consistently throughout the season. But if you think that he can maintain that Mave game that he needed just to get that belief back, and this could be the start of something really, really special, then you could go for him. But yeah, still a very risky selection there. But upside, if he plays like he did in the weekend, wow, you know, he could be anything up forward. Isaac Keane is another option, 360k, projected score of 65. That's not something that you want to see, is it? But even if he does go that, his break-even's 39, he'll still go up over 10k. As we know, we've talked about this, the projected rise isn't too important. But with Heaney, I don't think there's anything else I can say on him. You know that he's a durability risk. He's a type of bloke that can step on a rock and roll his ankle. But at the same time, he's a sort of bloke that can almost dominate a game of football when he's right on. So if you've got, about 350, a little bit more in the bank, then I think he's a realistic option that you'll have to look at. And the other bloke I've got there is Tommy Atkins, 389,000, so the most expensive out of the bunch. Season average of 79, nice 3-round average of 94 with a low break even of 21. So they're actually projecting him to go 91 this week. So Atkins does have the highest projected score of the lot. But the thing with Atkins that's a little bit different compared to the other players, I think, is his ceiling. So I can see Lynch, Stevenson and Heaney going really, really big in a match. And I think Atkins is that safer type of player that will give you around the 80 to 85 average from here. So it depends on what type of player you are. If you're a safer player, then I think you could go on Atkins. But if you're looking for someone that can win you league games of football, then I'd probably be looking at one of the other three blokes. Tom Lynch, I could have even included him in my key forward discussion on the previous page, and I'd probably have him second under Tom Hawkins. So if I was to rate the key forwards, it would be Hawkins and probably Lynch, given the fact that he is actually under 400k. I wouldn't be spending what is about 70 odd k more for a Tommy McDonald type. So yeah, Lynch, Stevenson, Heaney are those blokes that have a higher ceiling, but again, probably a lower floor. Atkins for that more consistent type pick, I think. On to the next major question I've had this week. It is what to do with either Whitfield or CJ down back. Now, I've had Benny Gray and Mitch ask specifically about CJ. Thanks for that, guys. Yeah, 100% he's a trade-out option. He's now gone for the season. So, depending on how much cash you've got, there's some really, really nice options here. Whitfield, on the other hand, I think should only be missing for the 1 week. So, if you've got cover, such as a Tommy Highmore down there, I'd 100% be holding on to him. If your cover's someone like Bianco, then you will be losing some points this week. It really does depend on where you sit in the rankings. Are you an overall player? Are you a league type player? Yeah, it's very personal when it comes to the Whitfield decision. But yeah, trade dependent, I would be holding on to him. But if you're lucky enough to have 4 or more, then you'd be happy to move him on. Now, who do we replace these blokes with? Well, we've got some more expensive options here, and then we've got a couple of bargain options down below. Clearly, I think the best pick that you can go with is Callum Mills. So, talk about a model of consistency. These are his scores from round 10. Has not gone below the ton. 136, 101, 145, 100, just got there. 122, 117, another 100, 105, 111, 121, and a 127 against the Dogs last week. Looking at these numbers, yeah, it's now very, very clear that not having Callum Mills has really, really hurt my side. If you have 572,800 to bring him in, absolutely do it without hesitation. This man should not let you down. He's an absolute star. Sydney are playing really, really well. Upcoming fixture is GWS, Freo, Essendon, St Kilda, and then finishes off with North and Gold Coast. So having him for that prelim and Supercoach Grand Final could be absolutely terrific, and it really could be a game changer in the end. So if you've got the cash, certainly go up to Callum Mills. The other bloke there is obviously Rory Laird. Now with Laird, he's a really highly owned player. Most of us have him. Defensive midfielder, as we know. He's been one of my best starting selections this year. It was an absolute no-brainer. So I'll read his last, will go 7 weeks. So 123, 92, 144, 132, 109, 129, 123. Absolutely phenomenal from Rory Laird. Shares an identical 3-round average to Callum Mills and an identical season average as well. So these blokes are clearly the 2 top dogs in our defensive lines. If you don't have them and you've got either Whitfield or CJ and you need to get rid of them and you've got the cash, then do this without hesitation. I think the next best buy would have to be Tommy Stewart. Really, really nice price at the moment, 522,500, a season average of 107. So underneath these 2 blokes, I think Stewart's been the next man under that. Look, what do we like about Tommy Stewart? We're on repeat again with this pick each week because he's just got so many different avenues to score. I said with Laird, he's been my best starting selection, but Stewart as well would certainly be up there. There was a point in time where he was getting really close to that 600k mark, had a really, really nice run of scores. And then we've seen recently in the last, 6 weeks again then, 119, 130, 120, that really, really low game against Brisbane where he's playing on Charlie Cameron for a 58 and then bounced back with a 107 and then a 127. So a really consistent type option, Tommy Stewart, and I think you should be able to bank him in from here on out to at least hit that season average of a 107. So at 522,500, yeah, looking really, really good, Tommy. The next man, Jake Lloyd, the Seagull. Can you believe that this man currently finds himself at under 510k? Unbelievable. I started the season with Seagull, and I did say at the time, and even midway through the season, that I still think that was a good idea and a good selection. But given the fact that his price has now plummeted close to that 500k mark, I don't know if that was the best decision at the end of the day. But he still has been a really consistent scorer. I'll read out his scores for the year: 98, 124, 116, 95, 100, 106, 109, 111, 98, 98, 142, 108, 104, and then he's gone to 73, 93, and then back up to a 114. Now, a real concern that I had a couple of weeks ago was his really low time on ground. I thought that he may be carrying a niggle, but from what I saw over the weekend against the Doggies, he looked A-OK. So if you're looking for another defender and you don't have the money to go up to one of the three that I mentioned above, then I think that Lloyd is a really, really obvious selection. I have no concerns about his body now, and given the fact that he's pretty much playing the role that he's played over the last few years, I don't have any concerns whatsoever anymore about this man. So bring him in if you need to. And Jordan Ridley as well. Talk about being impressed. This is now the Jordan Ridley of old. That 3-round average is all the way up to 113, and the season average now is 103. So you know how disappointed I was when Ridley went down with concussion. And upon his return, he just didn't look like himself. So he came back in round 7, scores of 87, 84, then a couple of 105s after that. We're thinking, yes, okay, he's coming good. But then in rounds 11 and 12, a 64 and an 80. And I was at the point where I was just sick of owning Jordan Ridley, really, really wanted to move him on. But his last month, this reads 111, 111, 109, and 120. So we are absolutely wrapped with that. This bloke got all the way down to 456k after peaking at 614k in round 4. And remember, I did pick him up just before that big price rise. So it's not like I paid up 600k for him, then he went down, produced all these rough scores. But yeah, as I mentioned before, it was just overly frustrating. But I've got so much more confidence in this pick now. I think he's now going to be a top 6 defender from here until the end of the season. Really, really good value at his price, I think. Jack Crisp, the man under him. The reason why I've included Crisp here is because of his durability. He is the most durable player in the comp, and if you're running low on trades, then durability, I think, is really, really important. So an average of 101 on the season, which is pretty good. 3-rounder of 105. He's playing through the Collingwood midfield. He's been really consistent in playing that role. Break even of 89. Projected score this week of 114. So if you place durability high on your list, then Jack Crisp is a really good selection, I think. And Braden Maynard, 518,900, 92 on the season average, 3-rounder of 100. That break-even is pretty big there at 130, but just throwing another name out there that you can consider, but I would much, much, much rather go a Lloyd, Ridley, or a Crisp at that price. And even Tommy Stewart is only 4k more, so there's no way I'd go Maynard over any of those other 4 blokes, but just throwing a name out there. Nick Hinds as well, 3-rounder of 89, so that was a little bit higher a couple of weeks ago, but at 431,000, he's probably the next best option that you've got if you've got under 450k. It's a really awkward price point, as we know, but in the role that he plays down there, we have seen last year he can score really well doing what he does. Yeah, beggars can't be choosers at this price, so if you've got under 450k, I think Nick Hinds is your man. I did also have a request, there we go, from Benny Gray, about Grimes given his recent form. And if you look at that 3-round average, mate, 92, it's above Hinds, and it's also above the other selection that I've got there, Jack Bowes. I was really trying to clutch at straws, mate, trying to find anyone else under that 417k mark, and Bowes was the only man. And the only reason really why I've got Bowes there is due to his earlier season form. We haven't seen that great form upon his return, so yeah, a little bit risky there with Bowes, but he is 30k cheaper than Dylan Grimes. And with Grimes, we'll look at that season average, it is only 73, so Bowes does have a 16-point rise on that. So it depends if you're looking at recent form or if you're looking at overall season form. Keep in mind as well that average with Bowes was when he did have that really, really friendly role and was getting a minimum of 20 plus kicks a game. So look out of Grimes and Bowes. It's sort of a flip a coin type thing. I don't love either of the selections, mate, but they're probably the blokes that you have to look at within that price range. And another bloke I probably should have included, I think he's at about 440 odd, is Nick Newman from Carlton. So if you've got around that mark, I think that probably Newman, Hinds, Grimes and Bowes are really the only blokes that you could look at, and possibly even a Liam Duggan if you're ultra desperate, I think. Now we'll take a look at some of the midfield options that have been requested this week. Got 3 questions down there. There have been a lot more questions as well. Could only fit 3 on the screen. We've got Alexander, Corey and Tommy. Thanks very much for that, guys. We'll start with the man up the top, Christian Petrarca, coming off a season best game. Massive score, 173 over the weekend. Kicked 3 goals, 22 kicks, 11 handballs, 8 marks, and also 6 tackles to go along with that. And look, to be honest, he's had a pretty solid last 2 months. 101, 116, 105, 130, 96, 94, 123, and then that big score last week. And I think, generally, he's had a pretty solid year track, but SuperCoach-wise, just hasn't quite hit the mark. And I think a lot of that is due to his disposal efficiency, just being a little bit too sloppy with the ball at times. In round 1, for example, 13 kicks, 11 handballs, that's 24 possessions, score of 98 along with 2 goals. We probably want that to be a little bit higher, particularly when he's impacting the scoreboard there. And then even when we look at round 3, only scored 83 points and he had 29 possessions also with a goal. So that's been a little bit of a concern for us this year, is his use of the ball. But the way that he's been playing, particularly over the last month and a bit, going better than Gawn, better than Clary. So if you feel like he can start to use that ball well, continue with those big scores, then I think he's a decent option for you. Taylor Adams is the ultimate risk versus reward selection that we have in our midfields this week. Last 3 scores of 110, 112 and 140. Everything to like about that. A 3-round average of 121. Absolutely fantastic. However, this is the big problem that we have with Taylor. So, played rounds 1 to 4, gets injured, misses the next 5 weeks, comes back in round 10 against Port Adelaide, scores a 92, then misses the next month of football. So, he has been in some really nice form during the last 3 weeks, but can we trust this man to play for the remainder of the season? Yeah, you had to be putting a lot of faith in him, but at the current price, 516,000, then yeah, I think that it could be worth the risk. Now, if he goes down, you have to be prepared for that. You'll probably have to have some half-decent coverage on your midfield bench, maybe a Lockie Bramble, that would be ideal. If that's the case, and you only got, around the 515k mark, then I would be bringing in Taylor Adams. I know it's a risk, but at this stage of the season, and with that much cash in the bank, if that's where you need to go, you obviously need to look at some of these risky players. Tuke Miller, absolute no-brainer. If you don't have him and you've got the cash to spend, I absolutely love this pick. I say each and every week that I'm shattered I didn't end up getting him into my side when I was really keen on him really early on in the season. But a 3-round average of 140, the hardest working player in the competition, should be the captain at Gold Coast in my opinion next year. I'm all over the Tuke Miller selection. So if you've got the cash, I would absolutely splash it on this man. Jack Steele, same boat as Tuke Miller. If you've got the money, if you've got 657k, absolutely bring this bloke in. He's been killing me not having him in my side, and he's an absolute beast. So a break even of 98. He'll be rising again this week. The ultimate vice captaincy option, and he's really rewarded those people that have put the faith in either putting the vice captain or the captain logo on him. So yeah, if you've got the cash, yeah, absolutely get this man, Jack Steele. Nat 5 comes at a real bargain price this week, unbelievably under 500k. Did start the season, I think it was at 608k, so you're getting a real discount here. We know why we're getting the discount. Obviously injured in round 12, we got a 70 against the Dogs, came back in round 16 against Carlton for a lowly 72. Last week against Hawthorn in Tassie, came out with a 107. Now, that break even is right on what he got last week, so I definitely think it's achievable, and I'm expecting this man to really step up against Geelong this week. It's going to be a massive game for Freo, also a big game for Geelong as well. It's going to be really tight for those top 4 spots, may even be looking to push for a top 2 Geelong. So Nat 5 I think is a really decent selection at this price, but the issue is, and I say this all the time with Nat 5, it's his durability. You've got to be prepared for him to possibly miss some more games of football for some wacky reason. Every year we see the same thing with Nat 5. He just really struggles to play 22 games. If you've got under 500k, I think it's close to a no-brainer selection, because the other options that you've got, if you compare them to Nat 5, yeah, they're just nowhere near him. But Yeah, it is a really risky selection at the same time. I think he's lost a bit of his ceiling this year. His highest score is only a 133, a couple of 125s and a 124. But yeah, nothing spectacular. So not someone that we can really rely on as a vice captaincy or a captaincy option. But in saying that, you look at his scoring history. Yeah, I think it speaks for itself. Been playing a lot more forward this year. Still has been running through the midfield as well, but certainly not seeing what we're used to seeing from Nat Fyfe. And that's, a nice 115 plus type average and a really big ceiling where we can see him produce 140 plus type scores. So if you've got under that 500k mark, I think you can get him in. Hopefully he can have a big week this week, but at the same time, durability is always going to be a major concern. And Titch, so finally I can recommend this man. He's had a really solid last 6 weeks of football, and it all started off when the buys came around, because I was really worried, look, am I going to have to trade this bloke out? I was really close at some stage, because he's just been one of these roller coaster selections, lots of scores in the 70s. I'll give you an example. So we go 109, 89, 107, 76, 90, 105, 147, 76, 142, 88. And we're like, geez, it's one good and it's one bad. But what we have seen in the last 5 weeks is Titch not go below the ton. So scores of 134, 114, 118, 110, and 131. So all of a sudden, we do see his ceiling come back. It wasn't until round 8 we saw a really big score. Apart from round 1, it was 135, but then lots of mediocre scores. Round 8, 147, round 10, 142, and then after that, we've seen those consistent hundreds. So I do like the Tom Mitchell selection at the moment. I was really worried. It's funny because there's some weeks where that contested disposal possession rate, is right up, and then there's other weeks where it's really down. I think it was it 3 or 4 weeks ago, it might have been 3 to 4 contested possessions for the match, which I just found unbelievable. But one thing that Tommy Mitchell never has trouble with is finding the football. Has it on an absolute string every week. There's been a little bit of criticism, I think particularly from Kane Corns, about his damage effect, I suppose you'd say. What does he actually do with the ball? Too many cheap disposals. I was even speaking to my principal about it, who's a mad Hawk supporter, and he agreed with Kane. He said that often he just places himself in the space and, gets that backwards kick, but it's not really damaging for the side. It is a bit of stat padding. So that doesn't really worry me as a Supercoach owner. I love stat padding, and stat padding is fantastic for Supercoach. So if you don't own Mitchell and you're looking for someone that should be able to give you a solid 110 to hopefully 115 average from here on out, I think that he could be your man. Ollie Wines at 562,000, 3-round average of 102. That's really disappointing because he's been getting so much of the ball, but unfortunately he just has not been using it well. So I'd be avoiding the Ollie Wines selection at this stage, because what happens when he has one of those low disposal games? We could be looking at an 80 type score. Benny Cunnington, 3-rounder of 122. This bloke has really been phenomenal. A season average now of 110, but I just wouldn't be paying close to 600k for him. Look, it could work out. He's a massive pod. Look, there's really no reason not to select him for me, apart from the fact that he's been in the system for a long time and he has never been able to maintain an uber elite average for the year. So go for it if you want a pod, but I'd be still staying away from Cunnington, going for someone else. Lachie Neale, you know how I feel about this bloke. Absolutely love him, but 2021 just has not been his year so far. Interrupted pre-season, had calf issues, back issues. Yeah, if you're paying almost 600k for someone, you want to be pretty sure that their body's right and they'll be playing out the remainder of games for the season. And I hope that's the case with Neale, but I'm just not overly confident. Look, I started with this bloke at his, about 720 grand to start the season, which I obviously really regret, but that's how much I rate this man. I absolutely love Lachie Neale, and on his good day, he's the best scorer in the competition, bar none. But will he get back to those heights in 2021? I'm just not quite sure. So for me, it's a little bit risky, given the fact that he's 589k. And we'll finish the midfield discussion with Cam Guthrie, obviously requested by Tommy. Now, what a selection he was at the start of the season. 104, 124, 163, 105, lower score of 75, 144, 132, 117, 136, and then in round 10 he comes up against Gold Coast down at the Cattery. On half time, I'm pretty sure he's on 75 to 80, and then obviously cops that injury. Played out the remainder of the game, I think, may have been sore in doing so. I think they just hit him in the forward line, ended up on a score of 98. And then after that, things have sort of gone downhill a little bit. Returned in round 14 against the Doggies, scored an 88, against the Lions 107, and then this was where we were really concerned against Essendon. He pumped out a 40. Last week against the Blues, 111. Yeah, I suppose that's a good sign. Now, if you look at that last 3 weeks, 107, 40, 111, do we look at that 40 and say, look, it was just enough game? Look, you might. His disposal count has certainly gone down after his return from that injury. What is it? In round 14, 22 touches. Round 15, though, that 107 did get 34. Round 16, only the 17 disposals. So that's been his lowest, I'd say, in a very, very long time. And then last week, managed to pick up 28 disposals again for his 111. So, look, is certainly a risk, but in saying that, at 502,000, he's the type of bloke that can give you those big scores. I already mentioned some of them just before, so I actually don't mind the Cam Guthrie selection. I'd much rather be paying up for another bloke if you could, but if you're stuck around that 500k mark, then this is the bloke that you bring into your side. So that's the mids. Let's get into some specific questions. So got Shaun up the top. G'day Shaun, should I hold or trade Whitfield as I have Highmore to cover him? I think that's a pretty easy hold, mate. Highmore's gone 90 plus. I'm pretty sure in 3 of his last 4 games. So if you've got him as cover, more than happy to hold Whitfield there, I think. Nathan Jones, g'day Nath. Do you think Goey will spend more time forward in his next game? He looks so good up front, but not good for his output. Look, I don't think so, mate. I think Robbie Harvey, we're pretty keen to keep him running through the midfield. Been really damaging there during the last few weeks, so I'd assume that he'd be spending the majority of his time in the midfield, mate. Corey Blackledge, best option into Cunnington, Neil Petracca, Mitchell, Wines. So I covered all those blokes, mate. For me, I'm not a huge fan of the Wines pick. I just think that he doesn't score enough for the amount of disposals that he gets. Neil, I'd still be a little bit worried about that durability. He's been extremely durable in the past, but 2021's just been a really off year for him. Petracca, in decent form recently. Mitchell, I think, is probably the safest option there. And Cunnington, you can't deny his form. I've been saying, look, he's too old, he's, all this, but I think he's a decent option, mate, if you're looking to go there. Supercoach Pod, g'day champ, hope you're going well. Great stuff you're doing, buddy. Hey mate, would like to know your thoughts on the Goey, Hinds, Marshall, Hawkins and Bolton as potential Langford replacements. Hopefully I've done that for you already there, mate. Austin, g'day mate. I have one injury. Should I trade Langford, Waterman as cover? If I trade him this week and I can afford Dale, but he'll be out of my price range. Look, it's a really tough one, mate. I'd normally advise to hold if you've got covers such as Waterman, mainly because of the fact that if one of your primo, those uber primos goes down for you, you won't be able to replace them. So it's a really tough one, but I'd lean towards holding if you can, mate. But that's the safe option, I think. Jeremy Bell, g'day Jeremy. Could you analyse Shaun Bolton? Yep, done that, mate. Hopefully that was good for you. Also for this week, you should have a sport player that does not play AFL and see if anyone picks up on it just for a bit of fun. I might look to do that in the future for you, mate. Cheers for the suggestion, buddy. Hope that you're well, mate. Oren McKay, g'day Oren. Hinds or Mills this week. Want to get the other next week, but we'll be very tight on cash. I'd probably go Hinds this week, mate, because he's got the lower break even. Mills is a little bit higher, but both still very achievable. But financially, I think it makes sense to go Hinds this week, Mills the next, buddy. Lowell, best option Langford with 500k. G'day, mate. Hopefully, I've definitely gone through that one. Alistair, to Goey or Marshall to replace Langford. Yeah, well, talked about both of those blokes, Alistair. I think it's really team dependent, mate. If you've got that Jacob Edwards type selection as that DPP loop at R3, then I really like Marshall. But you cannot deny De Goey's form at the moment with that 118 3-round average. Really, really hard to knock back at this stage, buddy. UA, g'day champ. Hey, do I need a 300, 400k F6? Yeah, hopefully I've gone through that as well, buddy. Benjamin Gray, g'day Benny. Need a defender for 417k in the backline for Jath. Think Grimes is probably the best option. Yeah, so hopefully I went through that as well, buddy. Rowan Marshall to replace Langford. Think that's fine. Tamas, thanks for the question, mate. Jake de Goey, unfortunately $500 away from Isaac Smith, so 472 plus out of my price range. That's really unfortunate, isn't it, mate? Don't you hate when you're just a few $100 away from someone? A hold or trade Langford. Yeah, again, mate, very team dependent. If you've got more than the 2 trades, definitely a trade. If you've got under the 2 trades, if you've got decent cover, I'd possibly look to hold, buddy. Matty Heath, g'day, Matty. Hey, mate, would you be able to rank 1 to 4 out of these blokes? Marshall de Goey, Tom McDonald, and Tom Hawkins. 2 trades left. Might use them both to get Langford and Waitman out. Cheers in advance. No worries, mate. Look, in regards to 1 to 4, if I could go a 1-2, it would be out of Marshall and de Goey, and then it would be McDonald and Hawkins. So out of McDonald and Hawkins, if you're looking at recent form, you'd go with McDonald. But if you're looking at scoring history, Hawkins is always up there in the highest averaging forwards by the end of the season. So yeah, it depends if you value recent form or that premium scoring history. And with Marshall and de Goey, again, I think they're both really good picks, but de Goey probably in the hotter form at the moment, buddy. Marcus Sarah, I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. Sorry, Marcus. But hey, should I trade out Dusty for Dunkley with rookies on field, or trade Madden to McCluggage or another option? So look, mate, my golden rule is always try to get rookies off field as your first priority. It would be an awesome trade being able to bring Dunks in for Dusty, but given the fact you've still got rookies on field, mate, I'd be looking to deal with that first, I think. And last one for this section here, Fezzy T. G'day, Fezzy. How you going, bud? Just suggestions on Langford. Hopefully I've covered that one, champ. And got a few more comments on the round review. So 3M's up the top. Great support of the channel. Hope you're going well, champion. I love the bloopers, mate. Hoping for Briggs to play, as am I, mate. Fingers crossed he does. Don't feel like Bianco will score well. I'm actually concerned he won't even be selected this week, champion. So for our sakes, mate, hope that he does. And great vids. Good luck this week. Really appreciate it, mate, as I said. And great luck to you also, buddy. Matty Heath again. G'day, Matty. 2 trades left. 10 to use them both to trade out Langford and Waitman. 2 to Goey. Yes, I think I talked about that one before, buddy. Cheers, mate. SDS, g'day, champ. Great video as always. Appreciate that. Love the multiple intro retakes. Yeah, look, it's a pretty common occurrence with me lately, buddy. Cheers for the Twitter follow. No worries at all, mate. Appreciate the Twitter follow. Also, looking forward to seeing some of your great content, buddy. Thanks, mate. It's coming to Rome. How are you, champ? Consider getting Lachlan Bramble. Look, that 120 on the weekend, that was absolutely phenomenal, wasn't it? I didn't see this coming from Lockie Bramble. If you're desperate for a really nice bench option and you're willing to pay up a little bit more, yeah, certainly got the talent, hasn't he, mate? Gat, g'day, Gat. Hey, mate, 2 trades left. What are your thoughts on trading Whitfield to short if Briggs Hills my cover does not play, or if I should just cop the 0? Look, really, really tough one there, mate. I think a lot of it depends on what sort of cover you've got on your other lines. Whitfield to short. Shorty looks okay with that Hooley in the side. So tough. I'd probably just cop the 0, mate, to be honest. But again, that's the safe play. I'm just worried that you may need to use those 2 trades on a couple of premiums that may be out for extended periods of time, 3 weeks and above, I think. Ballistic Boys, g'day, champ. Love the intro, mate. Thanks very much, buddy. Chris Pritchard, g'day, Chris. Hope you're well. G'day, DR. Great stuff, DR. Sorry, love it. 2724 for me. Awesome, man. 4 players under a ton. I'll take that from here. You certainly would, mate. No trades left. Bought in Atkins for Thilthorpe. Geez, that was not a bad trade at all, mate. 89. You'll take it. Yes, certainly, mate. Really good stuff there, Chris. Massive score as well, mate. Congratulations. The SuperCoach Pro. G'day, mate. Love your stuff that you've been doing at the moment, buddy. A great score. Love the retakes. Thanks, mate. Sometimes I do 3 or 4 takes before I make mine. Oh, yeah, tell me about it, mate. The life of a SuperCoach YouTuber, hey? Stock market bid cheap, D7 option for bows. Yeah, hopefully I went there, mate, and explained about that, buddy. Walk the Earth Dead. G'day, champion. Great stuff. Thanks, mate. Toronto to Dunkley. We'll have 1 trade left for Marshall next week. Look, if you can afford to do that, mate, Dunkley is an absolute beast. One of my favourite players in the comp. If you've got the cash and you're able to do it, yeah, I say, you only live once, mate. Go for it, buddy. Yep, good trade. Murky, g'day, Murky. 2 trades left. Got Langford and Whitfield. Traded Langford to Marshall. Murk, it's just been one of those years, hasn't it, buddy? You've had some ultra bad luck lately. So, Look, mate, hopefully the Supercoach gods take care of you for a change and no more injuries for the rest of the season. Super unlucky, Murky. Hope you're going well, buddy. Connor Aiken. G'day, Connor. I want to get my thoughts on Taylor Adams. Hopefully I've gone through that, buddy. Out of my picks of Boak, Parker, Dunstan, Adams, I certainly see him as having the high ceiling. I agree with you there, mate. Being injury prone isn't great. Collingwood hitting some form again. Worth the risk. Yeah, look, I think it probably is, mate. Look, Dunstan's been in really good form. Never really rated him as a player, but been doing some really good inside work. Parker just doesn't have that ceiling, I don't think. And Boak, look, I'm an owner. A little bit up and down. Fairly consistent, but we don't see too many of those sort of 130 plus from him. So I think Adams probably presents the most value there. At this stage of the season, mate, I think Adams is okay. Zach McCarthy, g'day Zach. 5 trades left, but I have Whitfield and Langford still 3 upgrades to make. Oh, gee, that's tough, mate. I suppose what you could look to do possibly if you trade Langford out is to go for one of those real value options that we went through before, and that way you can make a little bit more cash and then maybe use that in order to make a couple of your last upgrades, mate. But yeah, not a great position, unfortunately, buddy. Harry, g'day Harry, hope you're well, mate. Great vid, appreciate it. 5 trades left, need to trade Waitman. Oh, kids back. And we'll finish off with what I may be looking to do this week. Now, remember, I'm not even set on trading out Cole Langford yet. I've got the emergency on Jimmy Madden. If he goes, let's just say an 80 plus, I may even look to keep on Langford just for now. But if I do trade him out, I think number 1 target will be Bailey Dale. But number 2 target is probably Rowan Marshall. And there is a reason behind the madness. I like other picks better, but what he does offer is DPP status. So by bringing Marshall into the side, I basically open up every possible loop that you can have. And with 1 trade in the bank, I think that is really, really vital. So I've now got cover in my rucks. I did bring Edwards in last week in order to bring Grundy in. And given the fact that I've got the 2 big boys there and I've got no cover, if one of them goes down, even for a week, I'm copping a donut 100%. So by bringing Marshall in, that's a bit of extra security in that line, does open up another swing. If you look at my other rookies, I've got Saunders as that loop up forward. He rotates with Poulter, so Poulter can cover in the midfield and in the forward line. I've got Madden as that forward defensive option. He swings back with Kieran Briggs. Then if you go into the midfield, I've got Fife that can swing with Bianco, as well as Rory Laird. And Poulter, I mentioned, Newcomb is basically the only rookie that I have in my side that does not have that DPP swing. And wouldn't I love to have Lockie Bramble ahead of him? But it is what it is. I just missed the boat on Bramble, unfortunately. So that is an option that I'm looking at, mainly because it opens up, as I said, every swing possible. And I don't think that you'll find many teams that can say that. And look, when you are running low on trades, or when you get to the point where you have no trades at all, it is just so important to be able to do this. So that's my plans for this week, or possible plan for this week. As I said, I also really like the Goey pick as that really risky type option if you're not willing to go on Marshall and you've got a little bit more money to spend. But at the end of the day, if you can get Aaron Hall or Paddy Dangerfield in, I certainly don't need to because I've already got them in my side. Then I certainly think you can do that. And the other option, of course, is Mr. Josh Dunkley. He's one of those players that I think can come back and have an immediate impact, but do they start him off in the midfield? Maybe not. Maybe he may start off in that half-forward role. I've got a feeling that they might just ease him into his football because there's no rush. They've got some stars back. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what role he'll find himself playing on the weekend, but certainly a gun player, and he'll be a real pod as well. There's no team space that I know with Dunkley at the moment. You shouldn't or you couldn't really have him at this stage, I don't think. So he could be another really, really good option. I simply don't have the cash to be able to do that. I'd have to waste my last 2 trades, go with none, and I'm just not willing to do that. I don't even know if I'm willing, as I said, to waste a trade on Langford. I may just hold, but in the process of doing that, I would be really sacrificing my overall rank, and it would be more of a league-focused thing because I'm basically guaranteed finals for all of my leagues now. I think I'm top 2, if not top 4 in all of them, so pretty lucky there. So, yeah, a lot of this, as I said, is team dependent. So I will leave it there, guys. Hope that you're well. Sorry that this video is out a little bit later. It is Thursday morning. The game is on tonight, so hopefully you will have a little bit of time up your sleeve to watch a video. Check out a couple of the options. And thank you to everyone again who did send through a question. I really appreciate it. So all the best luck for this week, guys. Go the Lions, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, bye.